Talmor, Shishin Magachi. Talmor is my home. My family have worked the land for generations. My gran says the island does not belong to us, but we belong to the island. And we must be ready, for a great evil is coming, and death follows with it.
Listen and subscribe to the latest season of Undertow, The Harrowing, a Storyglass production presented by Realm, available wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey there, it's Rachel Ballinger, and I am thrilled to invite you to Rachel Uncensored, my podcast where I get real with my friends and celebrity guests, where we talk about all sorts of topics. From personal stories to hot-button issues, we cover it all. New episodes drop every Wednesday, so make sure you tune in on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Trust me, you won't want to miss out on the fun and candid conversations we have here on Rachel Uncensored.
And now, stop me if you've heard this before on the Toddcast podcast.
If you grew up listening to Canadian rock radio in the 80s or 90s, hell, even today's classic rock stations, you know who Loverboy is. They've been around since 1979. They formed in Calgary, although they're based out of Vancouver, and they dominated for years. Out of the gate, Turn Me Loose, Hot Girls in Love, Working for the Weekend, all staples of MTV and any good rock station of its time. 4 multi-platinum albums, millions sold, touring the world relentlessly to millions of people. And when their singer Mike Reno called up to be a guest, we talked about his first concert and how important music videos were to spur on their initial success. He shared the story of playing to 100,000 screaming fans at JFK Stadium, how he had a near-death experience while in Mexico. He talked about touring with ZZ Top, the shows that he was binge-watching at the time. And stop me if you've heard this before, Mike talked about how being on Dick Clark's American Bandstand is probably his career highlight.
I think the career highlight must have been, I think once we finished the first album, some of the guys, I remember it was our drummer Matthew and Paul, our guitarist, and myself, we grabbed the girlfriends and did one of those all-in excursion trips to Puerto Vallarta. Mm-hmm. Scraped together like $900 each to get down there. This is in the early days when we didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, so
right.
It was a big accomplishment for us. And we got down there. I think Matty went over to Yulapa on a boat with his girl, and Paul and I stayed in a hotel on the beach with our girls, and it was just pretty cool until about 3 days later when somebody came down to the beach and got me. This is, now believe it or not, this is the time before cell phones. I know. There was a time before cell phones. Mm-hmm. And they didn't really even have phones in the rooms unless you went through the operator. And it was kind of one of those kind of eras. Down in Mexico, things were always a bit slower. And so he came, somebody from the front desk came and got me. There was I thought, I don't know what's going on, but I went up and the phone was Bruce Allen. He says, Mike, I want you to get the guys together and get your butts back to Los Angeles. Dick Clark thinks you're his next favorite band. He loves you guys. He wants you on the show. And my life kind of changed right then. In my mind, I went, are you kidding me? Because I don't know if everybody remembers Dick Clark, but he was the biggest thing going. If Dick Clark was a huge enterprise. But if he dug you, everybody would go and buy the record, like the next day or the same day. And if you made it on the show, you were a huge success. And in my mind, I had said to myself, this is huge. And to be honest with you, that's probably one of the biggest things that, happened.
Stop me if you've heard this before on the Toddcast podcast is brought to you by Puff, purveyors of quality cannabis accessories since 1995. Use promo code TODCAST and get 20% off all regularly priced accessories and apparel, in-store and online at puff.ca.
Hi, I'm Jennifer, a co-founder of the Go Kid Go network. At Go Kid Go, putting kids first is at the heart of every show that we produce. That's why we're so excited to introduce a brand new show to our network called The Search for the Silver Lining, a fantasy adventure series about a spirited young girl named Isla who time travels to the mythical land of Camelot. During her journey, Isla meets new friends, including King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table, and learns valuable life lessons with every quest, sword fight, and dragon ride. positive and uplifting stories remind us all about the importance of kindness, friendship, honesty, and positivity. Join me and an all-star cast of actors including Liam Neeson, Emily Blunt, Kristen Bell, Chris Hemsworth, among many others, in welcoming the Search for the Silver Lining podcast to the Go Kid Go network by listening today. Look for the Search for the Silver Lining on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.